You asked for it, so you're getting it. We are here breaking down Cricut's IPO SEC filing. Buckle up. Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen. This channel is all about making sewing and crafts fun and approachable, and I am joined by Regan and Scone with Cowbutt Crunchies Cosplay. And these ladies have done all the homework for you and really combed through Cricut's IPO filing. So welcome, ladies, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have been chatting about this pretty much nonstop for the last couple days, and ooh, it is a read.
Ooh, it's a hot topic. And by the way, this document, I will link it below in the description box. It's publicly available for anyone to read, and I would recommend you do. And I also want to point out, when I know you have a cosplayer social media account and YouTube channel, but in your day jobs, you guys are, Regan works with software, and Scone, you do a lot of research. So that's why this kind of came naturally to you two, because this is a very familiar territory.
Oh yeah. I mean, anytime something like this comes up, the first thing, at least what she does, is say, I want to delve into it and understand like why someone is doing this, because usually there's something nefarious going on.
Always some kind of story. It's like, let's find out who's involved. Let's Google them. Let's figure out where they're doing, what they're doing, like public statements, news articles, these things, especially for big, very like successful companies like Cricut, these things never happen in a vacuum, and it's very tough to keep everything under wraps. So I really enjoy like root sourcing the drama, if you will.
Yeah, like in this case, we didn't know that there had been an IPO offering, but it was very easy to find once we started looking into more information on the CEO and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Quick disclaimers, none of us are financial experts, and this does not constitute financial advice. Also, since we taped this conversation, Cricut's CEO has announced a complete reversal on the upload limit for Design Space, so we're back to square one. You can find a link to the full statement down below in the description box. You put out a video that was a really good breakdown, and I would recommend everyone check that out. And the timing of the announcement with the SEC filing, what should customers take away from that?
So the SEC filing, so everybody knows, the SEC is the government agency that sort of regulates the stock market. So if you as a company are interested in getting onto the stock market, which is what your IPO is, you have to file all these documents with the government. So that's the document that we're looking at, is this big, long, it's like 180 pages of information that Cricut is giving to the government, which the government then makes publicly available for the sake of stockholders. But what it's full of is lots of information, financial, structural, about the company, where it's going, what their intention is. So they filed this in like mid-February with the intention. They haven't actually done the IPO yet.
I think they just did it today. Actually.
They did it today.
Or the 17th.
17th. Yep. That's today.
Yeah, and I think I can pull up the article, because I did, and we learned how much money they're really gonna try to raise, right? Like, and isn't it like higher than $100 million now?
So initially in February, they announced their intention to raise up to 100 million. And then on March 16th, I want to say, they updated it to 322 million.
Yeah, so let's pull this up. This has hit the NASDAQ now. Crafting machine maker Cricut sets terms for $322 million. Wow. So now we know what they're trying to do, and it looks like they're trying to set a stock price of, I think I saw something about $20 to $22, something like that.
Right.
So now we know what they're trying to do. Now, in conjunction to the original announcement with the 20 upload limit, what do you think the goal was for Cricut to do that in connection to the IPO?
So in the SEC, Cricut just straight up says what their risks and what their benefits are in terms of their finances. And one thing that they pointed out in a couple places is that their biggest revenue is from subscriptions, actually. They don't make the most money from the actual tangible product that they sell. They make the most money from people who buy these subscriptions. And of course, that makes sense. It's, a cloud-based product. They pay for bandwidth. And the numbers on there were absolutely bonkers. And she'll pull that up.
I'll pull them up.
So that's their biggest earner. And so what is basically said in this report is that they want to make sure that they increase the number of subscribers and increase that revenue. And they also want to prevent subscribers from unsubscribing because they have, quote, no reason to stay on past the initial period. So they want to turn these people into a much healthier revenue stream. And by forcing people to do that, if you want to use the machine more than 20 times, that is a great forcing function. It's, they, instead of giving someone a carrot and offering more stuff in order to kind of prompt them to sign up, they are using the stick method.
Yeah.
And I think give the numbers.
Yeah. So if you look at the, on page 14 of the filing, there's a big table. My eyes are bad, so I couldn't tell which table you were looking at, but we're looking at the revenue tables.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's the one we had. Think that's the one we put. Yes. Okay. Let me bring this back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like super damning in my opinion.
I know, right?
I love this document because they've told on themselves in the worst possible way. So if you look at it, there's the sort of the top box, which is their revenues, and I'm just going to focus on 2020 because they've had an amazing 2020. Like, let's be clear to anybody who's defending it with like, oh, their costs went up. Like, they could not have had a better year because everybody's stuck at home and it's finally time to make your vinyl stickers to label all your storage bins.
In 2020, they saw a 66% increase in subscribers compared to 2019.
So let's be clear. While many businesses were struggling, Cricut was cashing in. So Cricut's pandemic business went through the roof.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this table is it doesn't just show revenue, but it shows cost of revenue, which is essentially you have how much you're coming in and then how much is going out in terms of manufacturing, advertising, paying staff, software development, all of that. So their total revenue on machines itself for 2020, and this was from the beginning of 2020 through September of 2020, this isn't even the full year, was about $245 million, because there's another 1,000 at the end of this. If you read it, it's in thousands, so it's 245,000, which is million, right?
Yeah, they're doing
I
just fine.
read a lot of documents. I don't do math. It's like $245 million. But the cost of that revenue, the cost to create all of those machines was $205 million. So they're not making relatively, if you scroll up, it's like the top, 4 lines and then the next 4 lines. So you have the connected machines, the revenue coming in. We're looking at connected machines. If you scroll over to the side, because you're looking at...
Am I able to... I don't know if I'm able to scroll in here.
Oh, no. What?
All right.
I mean, the numbers are pretty similar regardless to make the point. But the point is that, like, if you're making $250 million on the machines, but it costs you $200 million to sell those machines, to produce the machines, to ship them, to sell them, you're making a lot of money, but you're not making that high percentage-wise. Whereas if the amount of money coming in from subscriptions is $74 million in 2020, but the cost of providing those subscriptions was $9 million, the profit margin on those is so much bigger.
Yeah.
That's so much more profitable of a product for them to offer as those subscriptions, because the subscriptions, and this is later in the document, but the majority of the cost of those subscriptions is hosting and then like a pittance in software development.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Because you're not manufacturing anything, you're just kind of hosting
You're just paying
for web
Amazon.
service. The overhead for the subscriptions is very low. So it makes sense why they're really trying to push the subscriptions now.
Yeah, I mean,
they're the most profitable arm of the business.
Yeah, they're almost more of a subscription company that they happen to make a machine for. It's like making a movie to sell toys.
Yeah.
Like it's a very similar model. And the report is not shy about that.
No.
Like the subscriptions are a huge part of their potential risks. And
potential profits.
And when you go public, you need people to invest in you, and they need to believe in your product and that you are going to continue to rise in value. And so what better forcing function than to say, well, we're rolling out this new hot thing that is going to make people subscribe and stay subscribed. So we can only become more profitable.
Yeah. And didn't it also say I believe it said somewhere in the filing that a lot of customers were currently not subscribed. So, and they did point out that they wanted to look for ways to increase monetization of current customers.
Right.
So for all of us that own Crickets, they're not just cool with us buying the machines. They want us to keep buying all of the materials and keep paying for that subscription. So it does look like this week they just showed that they really wanted us to have to do the subscription. And they're not okay with us not paying for that.
Yeah, well, it's the timing of this that is really telling with how little they care about the community versus making bank on Wall Street. You know, I'm not going to say that, Cricket has worse morals than any other company out there. Like, I don't think that's accurate. However, they have made it very clear with this timing what they intend to do. And most companies are a little more, subtle.
Yeah, not as obvious as Cricket has been this past week.
Most of these news articles that are talking about the IPO are very like financial news, like NASDAQ-updates.com, etc. So I don't think they've even caught wind of this. But what is interesting is that JOANN's filed to do their IPO on the same day that Cricket did.
That is interesting timing.
And you know what? If a lot of those people were returning those machines to JOANN's, and JOANN's needs to get their financials in order because they are also launching an IPO, I could see them because this is also in the SEC documents, the exact breakdown of how many Crickets are sold in retail outlets versus directly from like Cricket.com. And in fact, part of their whole growth strategy is they were like, we got to get away from retailers because the retail costs are huge. A huge amount of their machines are being sold at JOANN's.
Yeah.
And if there was a concentrated return effort in the past couple days, something to think about.
Now, you guys really explained well what the IPO means internally at Cricket Corporate, and can you kind of walk people through how the corporate executives will really ultimately benefit from an IPO?
So an IPO, so it's actually really interesting because once you get like past all the telling on themselves, a lot of the SEC documents is like, here's exactly how the stock is going to be structured. Here's who's keeping most of the stock. Here's how our stock works versus the public stock. The Cricket, so Cricket like dissolved their company and reincorporated themselves into Delaware, as you do.
Of course.
Everyone is incorporated in Delaware. This is not unusual.
Is there anyone that actually lives in Delaware, or is it all just corporations that need
Joe Biden?
All right.
Does Joe Biden live in Delaware? That's where he's,
Okay. All right. So we got one person. Is he the only person that's come from Delaware?
Yeah, apparently.
All right.
Only person I know. So what they're doing is they are selling all their stock, but they're not selling all their stock. They are offering, the way the stock is being structured, and I don't want to go into like super technical detail because it's not that interesting, but they are going to maintain the majority ownership of the company, the leadership team. They are going to, the way each one of like the leadership stocks is going to be worth like 5 votes versus the 1 vote of a stock on the stock market. So what that means is it's as the whole like Reddit, GameStop debacle has taught, hopefully a lot of people, the more demand for the stock there is, the more the rest of the stocks become valuable. So if you can do a really good, strong IPO and you're selling your stocks for $20 a stock, but you're keeping a big chunk of those in your pocket, now you suddenly have 20 times however many is in your pocket.
After all of this has transpired, do you any predictions on what will happen when they go public?
I think they'll do well, because I don't think that I don't think that the kind of people who are investing in these kind of companies are the same people who are paying attention to teacher and Etsy mom and cosplay groups on Facebook.
I agree with that. I do think that not being able to force a subscription fee will mean that the numbers that they have probably predicted for the end of 2021 are not going to be there. Mm-hmm. And I think they might have a reckoning a year from now, when the financials are either as good or worse than they were during the pandemic. And they were probably banking on those numbers going up a whole bunch. And so they might have to rethink that. And at that time, the stock might dip.
Yeah.
How do you feel Cricut will change as a company once they're answering to public shareholders and not just their own corporate structure? What do you think that'll mean for customers? I'm
going to be honest. I think we are literally seeing the evidence of it. Like, I don't think anything's going to change, because they have made it extremely clear that they are going to make decisions solely based on financials and stakeholders. Like, they've already done this, and they're not even a public company. So,
and it's important to point out too, like, companies don't just wake up on Tuesday and I'll do an IPO next week.
Yeah.
These are something that, because you have to reorganize your company. Like, they had to restructure their whole company. They had to reorganize in Delaware. Like, this is a year, if not longer process. They have to pay out if they've given stock options to employees that are not going to be given stock options in the new stock. Like, they have to pay those people like estimated amounts of money. It's a very long, involved process. So I think if you look at their behavior in the past year, it gives you a very good view of like sort of where they're going. Because while to us this is all very sudden, like their behavior in terms of how we are going to act as a public company has been in effect for a while.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Okay, so I want to pull up the risk factors that were in the SEC filing, because those were pretty interesting to me, and I know you found them interesting as well. And we really kind of see what Cricut wants to do in terms of the third-party sellers, like the people selling off-brand Cricut mats or blades and stuff like that. Yes. And the fact that one of their risks is not being able to increase subscribership. So what's your take on all of that?
So, including risks like this, just to be very clear, this isn't some weird nefarious thing that's unique to Cricut. And, any company that's going to go public is going to include stuff like this. Like, we should increase the number of people who use our things so we make more money. Yeah. Like, that's very normal.
A lot of it's legally required and very boilerplate. Like, if you scroll down far enough, there's like a risk of like, we could have an earthquake. Yeah. So a lot it's important to note that these are very structured documents that the government provides as a form of regulatory oversight on companies, so that they can't come out and be like, we figured out how to make lead into gold. Yeah. Buy our stock.
But it's the timing of this and the policy change with the subscriptions that makes it very clear that policy change was right in line with how do we directly increase our profits and thus the price of our stock. I think the other thing that's made very clear in here, where they're talking about wanting to do away with the third-party gray market, they really only call out mats and accessories and things like that. But a lot of people have been asking, well, if Cricut has this policy about the upload limit, can we just use third-party software? And the answer to that is clearly not. If they want all third-party to go away, essentially. They've already sued in the past 2 different third-party software manufacturers, and they want Cricut to be the only proprietary software that you can use with the machine, which is the only way that they can force this subscription functionality.
And in fact, I'm going to find it. There's a whole portion where they're talking about this is another risk that they mention is sales of copycat products or unauthorized market products by brick and mortar and online retailers. So, like, for example, I think a lot of people who have Crickets don't necessarily buy Cricket vinyl. You don't get that much. You can get
wait, are they trying to make the Cricket vinyl stuff go away too?
Well,
how can they do that?
It's a risk factor for investors that these sales will negatively impact the money that Cricket makes, because Cricket also makes a good profit off of their mats.
Yeah, off the material. Yeah, they're not in the business of just making the machines. They're in the business of continuing to sell you stuff for the machine. And one reason I personally didn't go for the infusible ink was that they highly recommended you only use the blanks. And I didn't really like the blanks or having to buy the blanks. So that's why I never got into the infusible ink. And that's why I'm personally not that interested in the new mug press, because I saw how much the blanks were for the mugs. And I was like, why would I pay that for a coffee mug? I can get a coffee mug at the dollar store.
Yeah. It's also a little disingenuous because, like, the chemical process behind, I understand a company coming out and saying, like, if you're buying random products on Amazon, we can't guarantee you're going to have the best, because they don't know where that's coming from. But there's a difference between, we can't guarantee it'll look as nice, and it's not going to work unless you use Cricket TM products.
Well, they say right in the SEC report, we do not make the most money from our actual machines. We make the money through subscriptions and accessories. Make the movie to sell the toys. Like, I'm glad I came up with this analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like how you buy a printer. The printer will be very cheap, like $50, but then you have to keep buying the printer ink.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like that sort of model. They don't want you just for the machine. They want you on the hook for all the mats, all the supplies, all of the subscriptions they offer, and your machine will not work without their proprietary software. So they really want to kind of monopolize what you buy in terms of paper crafting.
Yeah. Well, and similar to printers, now you have printer companies that it's not just that you need to keep buying expensive ink, because people figured out, like, you can buy a kit on Amazon and refill it.
And there's off-brand now. And
and now there's printer companies where you have to buy their ink. The printer doesn't work without it. I would not be surprised if Cricut started putting RFID chips in the mats. And the machines,
so that they only work with their that would be that would kind of be a way to rein all that in.
It's a current thing as well. It is a fundamental problem that I think something's going to give. Either companies are going to get ahead of it, or they're going to accept it, or something's going to happen where there's a disconnect between the idea of I am buying a piece of hardware, or I am buying a machine, versus I am buying the ecosystem or the license to use or the software that comes with the machine.
Grant with 3D Musketeers has been putting out some very fiery videos about Cricut, and he pointed out that Cricut, they already may be selling your data and probably will. They're going to continue to offer the software for free. And if something is free, you are the product.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot in the SEC document about how much data they're collecting.
Ooh.
They know exactly how long your machine is turned on for.
That's creepy.
How many days in a row you're using it. They have specific company goals for increasing how many days out of like X amount of days. They know all of your demographics. Like
Are they bugging the machines too, so they know what I'm saying around it?
They could. I mean, the machines have to be plugged into the software. So
moving forward, what do you ladies think we can expect from Cricut corporate coming down the pipe?
I don't see them giving this up. I see them doing a phased approach.
What I also see them doing is suing third-party manufacturers out of
Yes.
Is probably what they're going to focus on right now.
Get rid of the gray market, as they call it, in vinyl and mats, and
that one software company.
Yes. And I'm gonna put a cold $5 on RFID chips in the mats at some point.
That would make a lot of sense, so that you can't, because the third party mats are so much cheaper. So
And
if they do that, Yeah, and I've tried them too. I haven't noticed any difference, and I know they say it like voids the warranty. I don't really care, I guess, at this point. Do you think there's anything the community can do moving forward to keep Cricut accountable and to maybe try to sway their decisions towards decisions that are beneficial to the community?
I mean, being vocal is obviously the thing that worked in this case. And you know, with Cricut, it's particularly egregious because, you know, by their own words in this report, they say that they get 63% of new users from word of mouth, either friends and family or from DIY blogs, YouTube, just like influencer advocates. This is where their market comes from, and they are like well aware of it and actually brag about it. So they are very much aware of how much power its users has over people's opinions on Cricut. Yeah. So, you know, I think in general, when a company does something like this, the way to hold them accountable is to vocally hold them accountable.
We're going to get into this in another video that we're going to do. We're going to talk about the influencer ecosystem and how that's played out with this situation. So that will be on Cowbutt Crunchy's channel. So please check that out right after you finish this conversation, because we're gonna get spicy and spill all the tea.
Yeah, that's an interesting
one. Be a good one. So definitely. So if you have not familiarized yourself yet with Cowbutt Crunchy's cosplay, definitely do so. Also, you guys have a just fantastic Instagram account that is so inspiring. You guys do some wonderful work, and I'm very glad, at least out of all of this, that we've connected, because that's been awesome. And I think the cosplay community, and we're going to talk about this more on the other channel, so it will be in the description box. It will be linked up in the cards, and also put that as an end screen so that you guys can head right there. But we are going to have a really interesting conversation about our experiences being influencers and how that has affected the response to Cricut. So thank you, ladies, for joining us for a deep dive into the SEC filing. I'm going to guess Cricut will not give this one a thumbs up, but if you're watching out there, if you really want to help this video get traction on YouTube, here's what you can do. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the Sewing Report, watch the video through to the end, and leave a comment. That really helps creators like myself and like Cowbutt Crunchy's cosplay to help get traction in YouTube's algorithm. So if you like this type of content and you want to see it get more play on YouTube, that's how you can help us out. But we're going to head over to your channel now and have another conversation. So thanks again for watching. I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. See you guys again in the next video.